What is up, guys? Lonehawk here today, and welcome to a tutorial on how to be an effective shot caller in Overwatch. We're going over this topic here today because I think it is one of the most valuable skills you can have as an Overwatch player. When you're in a six-man team, I'm sure you all are aware you need a lot more strategy and a lot more communication than you do in SoloQ. Imagine if you can bring that strategy and that communication to your teams in SoloQ because you're an effective shot caller. And furthermore, if you're playing with a six-man team, you need an effective shot caller. So we're going to be going over how you can do that here today. We're going to talk about who the shot caller should be, how you guys can be shot calling effectively, and how you can listen to your shot caller, because it is a two-part thing. You can't just have a good shot caller and not people that are good at listening to these shots called. So let's go over all that, starting off with who is the best shot caller. And I don't mean in the world, I mean which position on the team. Now, you guys probably aren't going to like this because often the best player on a team likes to also be the shot caller. But knowing the best player on the team, they also want to be the DPS player. This doesn't really conflict too much, but it isn't optimal. Optimally, your shot caller is your support. Your DPS players constantly need to be focusing on dealing damage, flanking the enemies, or they're really kind of tunnel visioned on certain targets that they're trying to take out. They want to get picks and they want to be able to push in. Your supports don't always exclusively lock on to enemies. They are in the back more, and they have a lot wider field of vision, and they are much more effective at shot calling. If you're wondering about tanks, well, tanks, I wouldn't recommend them. If you have a Reinhardt or a Roadhog or even a Zarya, tanks are just in the thick of it. They are just in there trying to stay alive, trying to keep teammates alive, and honestly, having them shot call, not the best idea. There are some exceptions to this rule, however. If you have someone that sits in the back and isn't a support, maybe a Widowmaker or a Hanzo or some other hero that is very far away, they can be a good shot caller too. Those players just tend to be the supports, which is why I recommend the support be the shot caller. So in the end, I would recommend having your support player shot call. It's decent if your DPS player does, but not optimal, and I highly recommend you don't have your tank's shot call. Now let's go over the basics of having a shot caller before we go into more details. When you have a shot caller, they are the in-game leader. You do what they say. One problem lots of teams have, one problem I have when I'm playing with teams, is we never actually set a shot caller. And it really, really hurts us because two people will say two different things at the same time. Half the people will listen to one person, half the people will listen to the rest, and we're at a huge disadvantage because we don't have everybody in the fight. When you have a dedicated shot caller, that problem is alleviated. If they say something, your whole team does it. If you don't agree with it, it doesn't matter. You still do it. You talk about disagreements after the game. That is why you have a dedicated shot caller. If you don't like the way the person is shot calling, you talk about it after the game. You don't argue during the game, you argue after, and maybe set someone else to be the shot caller or tell the shot caller, be more aggressive this time, be less aggressive this time, stuff like that. Now let's talk about the things a shot caller needs to be coordinating on a team, starting with pushes. Pushes are probably the biggest thing shot callers need to coordinate, other than ultimates maybe. Pushes are what makes you win games. If you sit in the choke point and the enemy team just hammers on you, you're not going to win the game. If you never make it onto the point, you're not going to win the game. So coordinating pushes is a huge thing for shot callers. What you want to do is make sure you have your whole team ready to commit to the push, and if you have any flankers that are behind their team, they are also ready to come from behind at the same time as you pushing when your shot caller says go. When your shot caller says go, everybody goes. The Lucio speed boosts, everybody goes into the fight, and you try to take out the targets that you have previously discussed that you want to take out first. So if the enemy team has a Mercy, get rid of her. If the enemy team has a very high charge Zarya, she really needs to go. These are things you need to be coordinating beforehand, so your shot caller can say, are we all ready to go? Remember, take out the Mercy first, then the DPSs, then the tanks. You all go in and you do that when they say go. The next big thing shot callers need to coordinate is retreats. This is something I think no team does right in SoloQ or in 6-man stacks until you're at a very high rank. Pro teams do it very well, and that's why they're pro teams. They can retreat effectively, and it's something that potentially could make you an excellent player, just knowing when to retreat and listening to your shot caller when he says to. When you think a fight is lost, when you know a fight is lost, the shot caller's job is to say, get out of there, leave. If your whole team dies, well, you have to wait longer for them to respawn. You fed the enemy team more ult charge, and you didn't accomplish anything. If you see that the fight is lost near the beginning, before everyone is lost, like the enemy team gets 2 picks, or maybe you just don't think you can win it for certain reasons, there's a nano boosted Reaper coming, you back out, and you don't feed the enemy team nearly as much ult charge as you would have. Everybody survives. You don't have to wait as long to re-engage, and you're going to be much better off because of it. I have played many games in ranked where I can attribute the losses solely to not retreating. Players never retreated. They just kept going in until they died. That is so bad for your team. You're feeding the enemy team so much ult charge. They basically had nano boosted Reaper with Death Blossom every time we engaged on them because our team kept doing that. And I was telling them, don't do this, let's retreat, but they kept sticking around. They're like, wait, I'm going to try to get one more pick before I leave. I'm going to do all this. No, listen to your shot caller. Even if I wasn't the dedicated shot caller, I was telling people to retreat. We knew the fight was lost, and they still weren't. So listen to your shot caller and retreat when he says to. Don't stick around and try to get another pick, and if your team isn't ready, don't try to push in and get a pick on your own as well. That's a huge tip. People often trickle without actually trying to trickle. They're like, all right, I'll wait for my team, and then they round a corner, they try to just get some cheeky damage off, and oh, you got hooked by a Roadhog. When your shot caller doesn't tell you to go in, you don't even look at the enemies. You don't even get in their line of sight. And when your shot caller says to leave, you leave. Simple as that. Up next, we're going to talk about the next big important thing shot callers need to coordinate, and that is ultimates. Probably the most important thing you can coordinate because as the example I just gave showed, ultimates will win you games. They can win you games, and it's the reason I think Overwatch is considering nerfing every ultimate's charge rate because they're just so powerful and they're so integral to the game right now. So coordinating them is definitely going to be advantageous. When you're coordinating ultimates as the shot caller, what you want to do is use the minimum number of ultimates possible to win the team fight. The minimum number. I have a bad habit of using ultimates too frequently. Everybody does. It's actually a very hard thing to learn. There are times where the whole enemy team is earth shattered and I throw out Graviton Surge and there's no reason for it. It's a wasted ultimate and it's almost costed me the game a few times. So you want to coordinate this ahead of time. Don't just have everybody on alert and say, all right, ult when it's ready. No. You want your shot caller, or you if you're the shot caller, to say, all right, if the enemy team does this, we're going to use this ultimate, and that should secure us the team kill. If they use, like, Zenyatta's Transcendence, Ana throw your nade in, and Lucio break it down. Stuff like that. That may not be an exact example, but that is what you want to coordinate. Know exactly what ultimates you want to use offensively when you can, and know exactly what ultimates you want to use defensively. It's much easier, once again, if the shot caller is the support in this situation, because support ultimates like Lucio's and Zenyatta's are both defensive ultimates, and you can't really coordinate those usage. Those are very reactionary. So having your shot caller on those roles is going to be huge because they don't have to communicate, hey, we need Transcendence now. They can just do it because they are the shot caller. If you're not the shot caller and you think you have a good opportunity for an ultimate, you need to be communicating that with them and with the rest of your team. There is no need to use Dragon Blade, Nano Boost, Death Blossom, and Graviton Surge all in one fight. If you split those up into 2 fights, you can guarantee basically 2 wins in the fights, but you use them all in one, and now they're wasted. And if you use them all in one especially, and the enemy team has like a Zenyatta, and he uses Transcendence, you could have just burned 4 ults for nothing. That could happen. So you really don't want to overuse ultimates. Only use ultimates that your shot caller calls, and as the shot caller, make sure you're actually utilizing all your ultimates. Not at once, but in different fights. If you're not winning fights and you're just holding on to ultimates, that's pretty bad. You don't want to do that. So make sure ultimates are actually being utilized. One thing you can do as shot caller is say, okay, if the enemy team is grouped up, Reinhardt hammer down. But if Reinhardt hammer whoever's down Zarya, make sure you don't graviton search because he's already going to get everybody. That is the stuff you need to know. Or like Genji, if you see a good opportunity to Dragon Blade, you can do so. Just communicate it, and Reaper, make sure you don't Death Blossom at the same time. It doesn't have to be static like that. You don't have to, just say, all right, this fight we're going to use Earth Shatter, but make sure if you're going to use one ultimate, you're not going to use the other ones that you don't need. Now, there's a little bit more to being a shot caller than just knowing those few things. Those are the big things you're going to communicate. However, in-game, there are a lot of little things you're going to communicate. You are on comms. You're going to be talking all the time. So let's talk about what you should always be communicating while it's happening live. First, actually, let's talk about what you shouldn't be communicating when it's live. When you die, make sure you say that you die. But if you get pulled by a Roadhog hook that was totally BS, there's no need to say, oh, that Roadhog hook was crazy, I'm going to complain, oh man, it was, say that after the game. If you're really taking the game seriously, there's no room for that while you're playing. I mean, I do that sometimes, but that's because I don't normally take the game insanely seriously. But if you want to, and you really want to rank up, there's no need for saying stuff like that. There's no need to be like, oh, that Widowmaker didn't hit me. That was complete. Don't complain. Communicate the death and then be silent. The key here is just not throwing out too much unnecessary information. Saying that Roadhog's hook was totally BS doesn't provide your team with anything, so it's not necessary. It won't help. Now let's talk about some things that will help. First, we're going to talk about what you should say multiple times. Anything that's important, you can say it multiple times. For example, priority targets. If you can't find the Mercy and they're getting Mercy rezzed all the time, as the shot caller, you can be saying throughout the whole fight, find the Mercy, find the Mercy, find the Mercy. You can just keep repeating that. Not like every second, but every few seconds, you got to keep saying that because people will forget. They are in the heat of battle. My DPS players forget all the time. We get team wipes a lot, and Mercy screw us over because my DPS players were like, I was too busy killing everyone else to find the Mercy. Well, that's the point of finding the Mercy. That's why she exists. So make sure you're communicating important things like that multiple times. Now let's cover what else these important things are that you should actually be communicating. First of all, good players on the enemy team. If you know the enemy team's Hanzo is maybe a Smurf or just better than the rest of his team and he is hard carrying them, you can communicate that multiple times. That way people focus them more, because sometimes all it takes is you focusing the best player on the enemy team and then the rest of their team falls apart because they were using that person as a crutch. Another good thing to say is calling out when people are low on HP. That is huge. You can repeat that a lot too. I recommend repeating that a lot. Like if the enemy Zarya is on full charge and you get her down but you can't kill her, communicate Zarya's low, Zarya's low, Zarya 10 HP, Zarya one shot. One shot is probably the quickest way to say that if they're low enough. Just say stuff like that. Communicate when someone's low. That way people can look around and hopefully finish them off with you. Because when you kill someone, you actually get the kill. The enemy support can't reap the ult charge off healing them. But if you leave them on 10 HP, the enemy support will get a lot of ult charge, and it doesn't really negate what you did, but it's a little bit worse. So finishing off low HP targets is crucial. Another thing you should definitely be communicating is when there are people in your backline. If as a support, this is huge. The gist of this is if there's a Genji that keeps diving you with a Winston, you need to be communicating that A, before the fight, and B, during the fight. That way people can turn on them. And on top of this, you should be communicating what people's roles are. These kind of go hand in hand. So let's say you have a Roadhog and you keep getting dived by a Winston. You need to say, hey, Roadhog, save that hook. Winston's going to dive me. I need you to pull him off me and potentially kill him because Roadhog destroys Winston. Stuff like that. Or Reinhardt, keep that shield up. Stop going in with the hammer. Just keep the shield up. We need protection more than you need to do damage. Communicating what people should be doing very frequently is very good. Otherwise, people can often go just try to kill people oftentimes. Like as Roadhog, I'm guilty of that as well. I just kind of go off and try to do my own thing, try to kill people while neglecting my own backline. So as the backline, if you're the support and you're the shot caller, making sure your players help keep you alive is going to be huge. So just some final points to reiterate. Make sure your shot caller is set in stone before the game if you're a 6-man stack. And if you're just going into solo queue or you're not queuing with a full team, try to make yourself the unofficial shot caller of the team. Make sure you're explaining what to do, everything that I just mentioned, and just try to be the shot caller. Because if your team listens to you, that can give you a huge advantage over the team that doesn't have a set shot caller. Make sure you're always listening to your shot caller, especially if like you're they're your friend, they're on your team, because you don't want to argue in game. Everything you argue should be after the game, but what they say is like the law. Make sure you do it. Now, this doesn't actually hold up as well in, solo queue. If someone's shot calling on your team and you don't think they're a good shot caller, you can argue between fights and between rounds about what they should be calling, but it's still not optimal. Try to listen to your shot caller if they know what they're doing. And then finally, it's okay to repeat things multiple times if it is good information, like when an enemy is low, or it's someone you want to focus, or you're about to die and you're being harassed. And make sure you don't even mention anything that is useless information, like how crazy broken Roadhog's hook is, or how you think the enemy Widowmaker is hacking. Those two things won't help your team, so just don't mention them. Hopefully this video was helpful to you all. I think it really could be. This is one of my better videos in my opinion. So if you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like down below. Those likes really help me out. They really get my video out there. And if you want to follow me, make sure you follow me on Twitter at LoneHawk. That's a 0, not an O. Remember guys, the Hawk Squad Open registration ends Thursday. So if you wanted to put a team in for that, make sure you check the link in the description and enter your 6-man team for my tournament that I will be casting. If you don't have a 6-man team, check out the Discord server. I will hopefully have linked in the description, and you can find teams there or in the comment section or on my subreddit. Basically, just find a team and enter them. It's going to be a very fun time. There will be prizes to be determined for the winning and the losing team. And by losing team, I mean last place team, because that's just fun. Anyway, I'll see you guys all later. Lone Hawk out.